Photographers and journalists are that rare type of people who, in the pursuit of a good story, can sometimes do things that are a little bit crazy. Sometimes they are ready to go so far looking for rare footage or secret information that no one in the world can dissuade them. Of course, many rely on their instinct or the so-called sixth sense, which protects them and tells them when to stop. But not everyone is ready to hear their inner voice in time, which tells them not to do this or that. And sometimes when intuition or the advice of others fails, fate has to step in, sometimes in the role of an animal. And it is good if such a friend is nearby at a dangerous moment, but what if he is at the other end of the city, tied to a chain in an enclosure? Make yourself comfortable. Today we will tell you a really warm story straight from Africa. A photographer from a world-renowned wildlife magazine traveled to Kenya to capture rare footage of lions in their natural habitat within a national park. He always traveled light, taking with him a couple of t-shirts, an expensive camera, and his beloved Rottweiler dog, whom he acquired from breeders several years ago. The Rottweiler was born with a small white spot on his chest, which deprived him of breed characteristics, and the breeder wanted to get rid of the puppy. But our hero prioritized having a companion over a purebred dog, so he adopted the outcast puppy. In the future, the rescued puppy will repay with interest for his saved life. So back to the hot savannas of Africa. The young man arrived at the place, settled down in a small hotel, slept well, had breakfast, and fed his Rottweiler. After that, he took his pet to the owner of the hotel and asked to look after him while he went to the savannah for beautiful pictures of lions. The owner of the hotel took the dog to an enclosure, but since the fence was not very high, he also put him on a chain so that the dog could not run away and get lost. Having returned to the photographer, the owner handed him the business card of a local guide who did not charge much for his services and knew the area very well. The guide was supposed to take our hero along the famous paths and lead him straight to the lions. The photographer just chuckled. He had already traveled to many wild places, mainly in India, and he was completely sure that he knew how to behave in such places. The owner of the hotel insisted that it was a very dangerous undertaking to go into the savannah without a guide, but deciding that the locals just wanted to make more money, the photographer refused. After taking a local bus, the photographer dismounted and continued on his way, delving further and further into the wild world of beautiful and very dangerous Africa. Along the way, he took beautiful pictures of giraffes and elephants, buffaloes and zebras, but it was primitive in his opinion. He wanted to find huge wild lions and shoot them as close as the lens of his brand new expensive camera would allow him. For a long time, he wandered through the endless savannah. The sun was already at its zenith and mercilessly blazed from above. The photographer had forgotten to bring water with him, and now he was struggling to find at least a puddle to drink from. Suddenly, he noticed that it was very quiet around him. He slowly looked around the area and did not see a single living soul. Something was clearly not right. He quickly opened the lens and began to look around through the prism of his camera, ready at any moment to press the button and take an interesting shot. Turning back, he was dumbfounded with terror. 2 huge lionesses were sitting a few steps away from him, and they were obviously hunting him. Their eyes sparkled with glee, their ears were flattened, and the muscles in their shoulder blades tensed, ready to make a single leap towards their prey. Then the man realized the misfortune of his situation. He understood that there was nowhere to run, nowhere to wait for help. He was completely alone and helpless. Looking into the predator's eyes, he pointed the camera lens directly at her and took his last shot. He decided that this photo would be his legacy. No one had ever shot lions so close before him. After that, he closed his eyes and prepared for the attack. Then he heard a familiar bark. Opening his eyes, he saw his Rottweiler, who was running with all his might in his direction, and behind him was trailing a fragment of a large chain from which he apparently broke off, hurrying to the rescue of his owner. Without a second's hesitation, the Rottweiler rushed into a fight with the lioness, but then a plaintive squeak was heard, and the dog flew a few steps to the side. Too unequal were the forces in this fight. The second lioness rushed at the man, but at that moment a loud shot rang out, and the wild animals very quickly ran away, leaving only a dusty trail behind them. Following the dog, local residents went in a jeep. They were trying to catch the runaway dog, saw from afar what was happening, and hurried to help the young man, firing a gun into the air, which frightened away the lionesses. The man threw his camera down and rushed to his pet. He was lying on the hot ground and breathing heavily. His side was badly wounded by the large claws of the lioness. Gently picking him up, he took him to the local veterinary clinic, where he received the necessary assistance. The Rottweiler survived, but the photographer's camera remained on the ground at the scene of the fight. The man himself did not dare to return to the savannah for it, deciding that he had had enough adventures. Having returned home, he quit the magazine and found a quieter job, devoting all his free time to his savior, his beloved Rottweiler. That is how our four-legged friends never forget good deeds. They are so strongly attached to their master that they are ready to give their life for them. We have a lot to learn from them.